I attended the camp as a kid and started teaching at camp one day out of the week. And then I started teaching all week long. And then I was asked to be in a co-director position. Every time I see that logo, it just makes me smile. It's just to be a part of it. And sorry. Whew.
No, that's it though. It has an emotional connection, especially for somebody tied to it as closely as you are.
When I say I do logos, I work in branding. It doesn't always sound very exciting, but when the clients who didn't even know they needed this now understand and respect us for what we're doing, that's just the best kind of partnership. Whenever I see the Camp Canopy logo, I smile too.
Your whole team has a huge amount of talent, and we appreciate you.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right? But your brand is more like an ice cream sundae. If it's built right, you know your customers are going to get a consistently wonderful experience with a shining cherry on top every time. A few years back, we were approached by the organizers of a long-lived summer camp looking for a bit of marketing help. Our recommendation for an all-out rebrand, however, was a bit more than they expected. Today, we reconnect with our friends from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to recount the challenges, insights, ahhs, and oohs and ahs that happen when clients and agency have a full understanding and trust in the science and the creativity involved in branding. That's all ahead on today's episode of Shooting the Shift. Hello and welcome to Shooting the Shift, a venture here at Shiftology Communication, where our team of communication professionals take time to reflect, share, and provide insights on what we do every day to help our clients reach more, convince more, and win more. I'm Dan Toland, Director of Ag Projects and Virtual Experiences here at Shiftology, and we're happy you're joining us for today's episode titled, That One Time at Rebrand Camp. All right, well, we're joined today by Jeremy Scherf, the Central Region Manager from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Forestry. That's a mouthful. And we're joined by Marin Smith, our co-host today, the Vice President of Client Services and Creative here at Shiftology Communication. Thank you both for joining us today. And could you do a quick introduction, basically, of both who you are and what you do? Marin, we'll start with you, and then we'll jump to Jeremy.
Okay. Well, Dan, like you said, I'm currently the vice president at Shiftology, but I have over 25 years experience as a graphic designer and creative director, and I also teach graphic design. So my love is in visual communication.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so Jeremy Scherf with Division of Forestry, despite the long title, our role is to work with private woodland owners and give them advice on managing their woods. We call it our service forestry program. I'm fortunate enough I get to spend almost every day in the woods, walking around looking at trees and talking about trees to landowners and teaching them more about it. And that's just the love of what we get to do.
That doesn't sound bad at all, really, when you think about it. And Jeremy, it's been a few years. We were introduced to you a few years back as your team there at the Division of Forestry reached out to us with a very specific type of need. Can you share more about what you were looking for and why you all contacted us here at Shiftology?
Yeah, so, part of our outreach program is to kind of step outside our normal roles. And one of the things I got involved with was a forestry camp, a week-long summer forestry camp at the time called Ohio Forestry and Wildlife Conservation Camp. It's actually been going on since 1950. I attended the camp in the 90s when I was a kid. And we're talking at one point, 500 kids a summer would come to this camp, and it's been going on a long time. But we were kind of in a rut, and it's volunteers that run the camp. It's sponsored by the Ohio Forestry Association, but their staff isn't the ones running the camp. It's me and some people from some other agencies. But we're foresters, we're wildlife biologists. We don't know marketing. We really don't know kids. We know how to talk about trees and that's what, and wildlife stuff, and that's what we're doing. So I actually went to college with Melanie and saw some of what she was doing and just reached out via email one day and said, hey, we got this really cool camp. We think it's cool. We need some help marketing it. And then that's when we got to meet you guys.
So just looking to improve the marketing of your camp. What was the camp called?
Ohio Forestry and Wildlife Conservation Camp.
What does Melanie say to you when you guys first sit down and have this meeting?
So, it was a lot of learning about what we were, who we are, what we were, what we did, what our goals were, things like that. And I don't I don't remember the full details of what all we got into that day. I think it was a few weeks later when they came back to us and kind of laid out a plan for us.
Marin, do you remember this project popping up and Melanie discussing it? What was talked about on our side of things?
Right. I think as we were talking about, the marketing and what might be needed, we were really focused and looking at that audience that we were going to be really trying to communicate to. It wasn't feeling like the actual kind of identity and brand and who you were was matching what they were hearing, if they were hearing it. And so we really wanted to make sure everything that your brand, everything that you were communicating to these people, was answering their pains, answering what they wanted out of a camp. So we felt like very strongly that we needed to kind of go back and to the beginning and make sure that we knew who you were and we had just a really solid brand to work with from the beginning. And I think that's why we suggested we work on a few things like the name.
It was really impressive to us how deep you guys went. We figured we're going to have a half-hour conversation and you're going to say, yeah, put up this ad and do this and a billboard and whatever. And that was not what happened.
So you came to us for one thing and we came to you saying, well, you need a lot of different types of things to get to that point. And Marin, you mentioned brand or branding. What do you mean when you say a brand?
It's always such a complicated answer because, I think we confuse a lot of times branding and brand identity. And so to quickly kind of break that down for you, I love a good analogy and I also love a good sundae. So I blended the two into a brand sundae, if you will, and it helps me kind of explain things. In our brand sundae, we have the bowl that everything's in, and that's really our mission and our values and who you are. And Jeremy, your camp, we knew who you guys were. You had this deep-seated passion for the environment, conservation, and trees, and such amazing things that you do. So we knew that was there. And I think that you already we had to work on your core messages, which was really what you who you were to people. And I think of the core messages as ice cream. That's really kind of the meat of your brand. That's who you are intrinsically. We can't make you that. That is who you are. But then we need to take that and apply it to the right audience. And this is where we start getting into a little bit more. We have our targeted messages, and I like to think of that as your hot fudge or your caramel on top. We're telling them this is what they're seeing. This is a hot fudge sundae. This is a caramel sundae. This is a strawberry sundae. And now that we know those and we have those messages, we may need to make them really exciting and fun or whatever that is for people to see them. So then we're going to start putting on our sprinkles and our logo. I always call the cherry on top because that logo that we have, though everyone thinks that is your brand, that's just a representation of your brand. And you can understand it represents everything that you stand for. It is the top of that.
That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people tend to focus on the cherry when you're talking about a brand. They think, oh, we need a logo. We need to make this look good. But if you're working on that first and trying to dump all the other stuff on top of that, sundae is going to look, and it might still taste okay, but you're not going to recognize it as a sundae and what it is. So can we talk just for a second, Marin, about maybe some samples of what is a really good brand? When you see a logo, what does it mean that logo is the cherry on top? It's been done correctly versus, well, here's a cherry with all the toppings just spilled all over the table and melted.
Right. I mean, we have our amazing brands out there. When I teach, I love to talk about McDonald's because clearly they know what they're doing, right? And we see those golden arches and whatever it is, but we're going to emotionally connect usually with them. Most of us have been eating at McDonald's since we were children. And so those French fries and those Happy Meals are just, we love them. Another brand I love is Target. But I think one of the ones that I love most that I think really just summarizes everything is actually right above Jeremy. I see the American flag. And a country's flag stands for everything. We can usually break it out and what the symbols in it mean. Well, when you see the American flag, you feel that, especially if you're an American. We know, everything that we stand for freedom, for all of that. And we may see another country's flag and, it could make us angry. It can make us feel bad, all of those things. So I really think that a flag is the best brand there, or best logo there is for a brand.
It's amazing. Like Target just has it's literally a Target. But
it's the Target.
People know what it is when they see it. They know what it represents. They know it does. It elicits feelings in them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The same as McDonald's. So very interesting. Now, we cannot apply a Target. We cannot apply an American flag to the Ohio Forestry Conservation Camp. I probably didn't fit all the words in there for the camp there. So as we go about this and say, okay, we need to look at your entire brand, take a step back, Marin, kind of as the leader of our creative process here, how are you making sure we went about this with Jeremy and his team in the correct manner?
Right. So at Scherf, we subscribe to sales brain and neuroscience, and we like to use this and appeal to the reptilian part of our consumers or our customers' pains or their brains. And that's going to, trigger faster and more effective customer decisions. So we want to make sure that the messages that we use are going to be succinct, quick, fast, and easily digestible so that people will remember that over and over again.
And as part of this process, I believe Marin actually packed her bags and went to camp as part of this, right? I mean, you weren't just saying, okay, we're just going to slap something together in Canva. I don't know if Canva was even a thing at that point, actually. But we're not just going to hear you and sit here and think about what this is. We're actually going to immerse ourselves in camp, correct? How did that go?
Well, I was excited. I always tell people one of the best parts about my job is I get to go on a lot of field trips because we can't understand a company or an organization unless we are immersed in it and really truly understand the ins and outs of it. I went to camp my whole childhood and it was my favorite week of the year. So I was on board with this project from day one, pumped, excited. And it was pretty funny because Emily Bennett that I work with, she came too, and she is about as anti-camp as you get. So we drove to the middle of nowhere one day while camp was in session, and we got to have the whole camp experience. We got to go on a few of the sessions or lessons out into the woods. We got to hang out with the campers. I think I got in trouble and they yelled at me because I put my elbows on the table and we sang. So I got some good camp humiliation. What I was impressed with is that you guys have air conditioning. That wasn't a part of my camp experience, but just everything, we learned so much. I learned so much about forestry that day too. So we were really able to know what this camp experience is going to be like for these kids. And now that we understand that, we can communicate.
All that before we start ever working on the marketing or the branding. So, Jeremy, what are your thoughts as our team is coming to you and say, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to go to camp. We have to get all these things figured out before we can help you market.
Yeah, we came in asking for a simple thing and we were being given a more complex answer, as time went on. And, some of us were like, holy cow, what are we getting into? But at the same time, we were intrigued and curious and probably, I don't know, feeling blessed for the effort that we were receiving. No, it was very evident that you guys were 100% all in on this project. That was just really cool to see. It honestly helped us be able to take that next step and say, yes, let's do this.
And, a brand has so many touch points with an audience. So, Marin, what needs to be considered as one goes about branding or rebranding in this case? As you're considering what's going into this, where is this brand touching all the, audience?
Right. And that's something that we definitely had to think about because every business or organization is different. Where are we engaging with the customer? So I think we also had to we like to do research. Everything's based on science. We want to make sure that we're not guessing at anything. So we actually had a focus group with teenagers, high school students, and we paid them in pizza. And we got the best feedback from them. They were not afraid to let us know what they thought of, the current name, which was a mouthful. And, would they be interested in attending this camp? Why or why not? So that alone gave us so much knowledge. And then certainly knowing our audience, knowing that these are teenagers, but also their parents are the ones that are a lot of times sending, especially the younger ones. So we need to find out where we're going to be reaching them at. And those are those touch points that we're looking for, whether that be website, social media, posters, t-shirts, mailers, all of those things. And we want to make sure that every single time they come in contact with this brand, they're getting a consistent message with consistent images.
I think consistency is the key part to that, because as you mentioned, it's being applied all over the place. And if you go to a McDonald's in California, you go to a McDonald's in Maine, you're going to get that same brand experience at every touch point with it. And we want to build that. We want to do that the right way for our clients here. Now, do we get it right every time the first try? I think, we try to set ourselves up and help our clients when we go through a branding project to say, we're not going to nail everything 100% the very first time we come to you with this. This is a work in progress. We're going to give you our best effort on it. But Marin, can you talk about what goes into the concepts? And maybe, I don't know, we might have some of those historical things that show maybe the options that we gave that we could pop in here and show. But can you talk through that process? Saying, okay, we've done the research, we're started writing our messaging some. How do we go about presenting that now to our client?
Okay, well, if I can actually back up just a
sure.
second.
Go ahead.
Just because I think we missed just a couple of steps. So after we had the research, we had talked to Jeremy and his team, we had been to camp, we had done it all. We felt like we knew all of this. Then we're going to sit down and we're going to have an internal brainstorm. We're all going to go over this information and we're going to work in that sales brain, neuromarketing space where we look at our audience's pains. What is keeping them up at night? What is stressing them out? What is hard for them? And how can we answer those pains? And that's where we're going to sit down and we're really going to nail in on the messaging, making sure that we have some really good options, using alliteration, finding those perfect words, and then thinking through some imagery. Once we've had that, they'll say, Marin, you good to go? You got enough to go on that? And then, just do it. You can do that. And so that's really where, my brain, that's, I think the hardest part for me is sitting down with those words, finding those images, and ultimately creating a logo that is going to be a good representation of that. And from there, we're usually going to have 2 to 3 concepts for our clients to choose from. We usually like to have a really safe version that it'll be all right. Usually the one that we want that's like an excellent choice, and one to stretch you and make you really uncomfortable and think, what if? So we usually try to have those 3 options and then we'll then present those to the client.
So do you, as part of those concepts, that does include different variations of that messaging as well, correct? So
yeah.
So different, a little bit, slightly different messaging, slightly different visuals in there. I guess, Jeremy, we come bringing these 3 concepts into your team. Do you remember what those 3 concepts look like? And does something stand out? You're like, ooh, no, I don't like that. Or, ooh, we love this. Or, oh, there's some work that needs to be done with these. What are your thoughts as we're coming in here with these concepts?
I remember just being blown away because, it kind of happened all suddenly for us that here's potentially a new name and a new logo and all this stuff is not what we were coming in for. We were agreeing to it at that point. Let's see what you come up with. But it was kind of shocked because I know when we saw, I think we ended up liking some of one and some of another and kind of forcing you to meld the 2 together. And I'm like, that's camp.
If I can go back, I think one of the things that we found out as we were doing our research and our focus groups and everything was that the messaging up until now, including the name, it was just kind of boring. It just didn't sound exciting. And when this camp was created, obviously we had so many people that wanted to go into that. Is a non-issue. 50 years later, the young people, they want excitement. They want fun. They want to know, if I'm spending a week away from home, this would be exciting. So though there's a lot of education with this, and that is very important, and we never forgot it, we really wanted to instill that sense of adventure because it seemed like whenever we talked about it, those were the exciting things. So I know as we did those, especially with imagery, we were really trying to lock in that you're not just going to come and sit in a classroom. You're going to be out in nature. You can be on the water. You can be in the woods. We have these, amazing traditional camp experiences too. We wanted to make sure that all of that was being communicated.
We realized 100% our old name, Ohio Forestry and Wildlife Conservation Camp, we lost people halfway through the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
The name said exactly what we were and what we did, but it wasn't exciting. It didn't draw anybody in that said, that sounds like something I want to go check out.
I don't think we're any spoiler alerts here or anything. We landed on Camp Canopy, and the messaging was discover forestry, discover wildlife, discover adventure. You know, Marin and Jeremy, you both talked about how that just kind of nailed the essence of the entire thing.
Yeah, you know, everything we talk about all week long, whether we're talking about harvesting timber, planting trees, managing wildlife habitat, soil health, or water quality, it all ties back to the canopy of the forest.
We were so excited when we came up with that. Dan, do you want me to refresh your memory on the other names that we came up with?
Yes. Do you have them?
I do.
Can we share them? I think it'd be kind of cool to look at on here, because I think it is neat to show folks that we just don't create something and say, here you go. And it's not like perfect the first time we do it, you know?
You guys allowed us to be part of the creation.
Right. And that's it's your brand, right? We will make sure we're getting it right. We want the client involved.
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
process.
There's so many things being Ohio Forestry and Wildlife Conservation Camp. I mean, we're just in the name. We've got wildlife, forests, and conservation. And to show all of that in a logo, you can't. That would be silly. We need to have a representation of that. But especially with the names, I mean, you can't put it all in the one name. And so when we really started thinking about it and those canopies, and it just, everything is alive underneath them. And that's really kind of the top of camp. And it just felt so good. And I think we loved it so much. And when you guys loved it, that was it. It was beautiful.
Look, I do remember some of these now.
I was just going to say, before we show these, as we were creating the logo, you know, there's a lot of rules in logo design, and sometimes you need to break them. You also need to know where they're going to live. You know, how simple do they need to be? Are they going to be constantly reproduced? This was not a logo that's going to be all over the nation. We can keep a close eye on it, and we can have a little bit more fun with it because of that. It didn't need to be this just Target or golden arches.
So this is one of the concepts. Do you remember this one, Jeremy?
I do now.
Yeah.
You know, I love the tree cookie, as we would call that. Looks like a tree stump in Ohio, and the catchy, you know, it's a catchy name, and the colors. I remember really liking the colors.
And you can see, yeah, we come up with different claims, different messaging. There's a color scheme to it and everything there. So that's, you know, we come with that one. Here's another one.
Camp Conserve.
But you can see we liked the layout of it.
Yeah, we really liked this badge. We had some other options down here for those badges, all kind of showing the trees, the water, the birds, trying to show, you know, all of that in this simple image.
I remember thinking after the fact that the ones we didn't use, you should sell to somebody else to use, because they were all good.
And if you see here in the postcard, the images that we're using are these more adventure looking, like, you know, we're having so much fun, just to kind of grab you right off the bat there.
Mm-hmm. And the messaging's all there. It's a little different on each one. Like this one's interesting. It's like dare to explore, dare to experience. Dare is all about getting out there and having fun. But then what we eventually landed on now was this, the Camp Canopy one. Was this exactly how it was presented? Did we nail this the first time, or did we come back with different versions of this, or was this like where it was right at the beginning?
It looks like this is the first one, but we went in and we made this lake because this was one of my favorite parts of being there. It is such a traditional camp site, like for camp. This is FFA camp. I'm sure a lot of other people have seen this. I had not until now. And it is perfect. You have this lake and you can just see everything and the trees, and it's so perfect. So I really wanted that. And then we kind of worked on it and made sure that it really looked like the real. So I think that there's some edits in the artwork from here. So we went back and forth on that for a little bit until we got it right. But really, we were pretty close here.
Very close, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so we go ahead and you move forward with this. So you're not just getting a logo, you're not just getting messaging, but you're also getting, with any branding that we do, Marin, we're also getting a brand standards, like documentation. Like here's all your files, but here's how we use them and make sure that brand is consistent throughout. Can you talk a little bit about what that branding guide is like?
Sure, we're always going to create a brand guidelines, even if it's just for the most simple, basic logos that we do, because so much time and work and effort has been put into this. We want to make sure that whenever someone sees it, they are seeing it in its pure form. So we make sure that every file you could ever need at any version is provided to the client, and then, they can forward this, and it has the identity document with it, which says here are the exact color codes and RGB, CMYK, PMS, your hex number. Here's when you use the RGB. Here's when you use the CMYK. Here is how we like the imagery to be. Here's the tone of voice that we use. Here's our messaging. So all of those rules and things our clients have, they can pass them on to anyone else, because chances are we're not going to be doing all of your graphic design work forever and ever. Other people are going to need to touch this. So you have all of the tools that you need to keep that consistent.
Yeah, you tell all the right ways to use it, but it's neat because you also lay out all the incorrect ways to use it as well. It's like, don't outline it, don't crop it, don't change the colors, don't put it on messy backgrounds, this and that, don't skew it. I'm like, ooh, that is Marin, like saying, don't you mess this up. I made this for you. Don't go ruining it. So, Jeremy, you guys have done a wonderful job, though, applying that brand, especially the logo and the branding throughout everything. Can you just, say, what are your thoughts here? You start to see this brand take shape. Now, you went from this whole thing saying, we need some help marketing, to saying, oh, wow, we've totally renamed this thing. We got a whole new look and feel to it. What are the reactions, both internally, externally, and with your key audiences that you're trying to reach?
Our committee, with our 3-4 person committee, loved it. We were 100% all in. We had to go to a board after this. We had to go to a board of older people that have, been entrenched, and Canopy as a camp existed since 1950. And some of those board members attended camp when they were kids, and it could have been in the 60s and 70s. So to convince them that we needed this change took a while. It wasn't just a couple conversations. It was weeks, maybe even a couple months of time to convince them that we need to make this change. And I know we went back to you guys quite a few times saying we need some help. And we need some more info on why we need to make these changes. Help us convince the people that are ultimately going to say, yes, you can do this, no, you can't. And finally, they trusted us and said, okay, go do it. When we released it, it was nothing but excitement. The kids loved it. The news media loved it. We saw them picking up more articles than they would in the past. The people in OD&R communications that were able to have these images and things loved it because it was easier for them and something more attractive for them to go promote. And especially from the department level, the Department of Natural Resources, their embracing of it and their promotion of it has just gone up exponentially ever since.
What kind of results have you seen, I guess, from the camp itself, as far as registrations, attendance, feedback that you get from it? How has it affected? Because that's what you want to do, right? Ultimately, the goal was to increase attendance for this camp and keep people coming back year after year. How'd that go?
Getting kids away from home these days is hard. It really is. We had a camp that we're trying to get 100 kids at, and we were in the 60s. And it's very hard to be profitable. Not that we're trying to make a profit. We really are based out of a nonprofit, but you can't lose money every year and keep something going. And we got those numbers up back to 100 within 4 or 5 years, and then COVID hit, and that dropped us back down. But last year we had over 100 registered, and then with some cancellations, we got 98. So our goal this year, our director is put it at 125. I'm hoping we can get there, but we're where we want to be. And I don't know that we would be there without having taken this step.
I find it interesting that you had to convince people that it needed a name change and needed a refresh. And especially when you look at it, I don't know. I just really, really like the branding. I think anybody that comes across it thinks that just looks fantastic. How can you not want to learn more about that? So I just find it real interesting. But I understand if you're holding on to something for 60, 70 years, it's hard to change that. So we're really glad that the powers that be helped you move forward with that. We're able to help you get there, move it forward, and to be able to help you accomplish your goals as well. So hopefully it won't need refresh for a very long time, if ever.
Definitely our hope, and it wasn't the logo and the branding. It was the name change is what was hard to get over. They saw the logos, they saw the images, and they loved all that immediately. It's just that tradition and changing that name, which was the hard thing. But I guarantee if we ever decide we have to do this again, I know who we're calling.
I'm staying the whole week next time.
Go.
If I have to come back, I'm staying the whole week.
I might find my way there as well. That'd be kind of fun. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Are there any other last minute thoughts you'd like to add about branding in general, your experiences working together?
I attended the camp as a kid, not knowing I was going to become a forester. It started that seed, and started in this job and started teaching at camp one day out of the week. And then I started teaching all week long. And then I was asked to be in a co-director position. Every time I see that logo, it just makes me smile. It's just to be a part of it. And sorry.
Whew. No, that's it though. It has an emotional connection. That's exactly what Marin was talking about. It changes and changes perspectives. It gives you that emotional attachment. You're getting into, especially for somebody tied to it as closely as you are, had a big impact. Marin, any other thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, we've worked with a lot of clients. We've done a lot of brands, a lot of logos, name changes. It's exhausting. It can be difficult. I can't tell you how many board meetings we've gone to help persuade and convince, which usually works. When I say I do logos, I work in branding, this and that. It doesn't always sound very exciting, but truly when you feel like you're making a difference in people's lives, when the clients who didn't even know they needed this now understand what we're doing, are on board with it, and respect us for what we're doing, that's just the best kind of partnership and makes you happy to do your work. And I also, whenever I see the Camp Canopy logo, I smile too. Has always been, I think, just you, Jeremy, your team, what you're doing there is so wonderful. And you've always been one of my favorite clients ever.
That's fun to know.
Yep. We greatly appreciate it. And it's great when, like I said, when it all comes together, you just nail it and it speaks to everybody. You just know it. And, I could speak for all of us at Shiftology when we say, thank you for being so open and coming at this and saying, yes, this can work. Yes, this is needed. Or we understand the research that you're doing and why you're taking this approach, because it can produce beautiful results when you're trusted and you work together and you do it the right way and you make that big, beautiful sundae and that cherry's glistening on top. It works together so well.
Your whole team has a huge amount of talent, and we appreciate you.
And you. Speaking of that, how can people learn more about Camp Canopy?
Yeah, so you guys made it pretty easy for us. Go right to campcanopy.com, and you're going to see an absolutely beautiful website with that logo all over the place, and learn what we get to do, or what the kids are going to get to do, and what we're all about, and what they need to bring, and how to register, and when camp is, and all those wonderful things. We're also on social media, on Facebook mainly. We have an Instagram page too, but Facebook is what we use a little bit more than anything else.
That's part of the process too. Need a new website, and yep, we can help make that work as well. So yeah, campcanopy.com. And Marin, how can people learn more about getting involved and learning how we can help them market a little bit more and maybe expand or redo a brand?
We're here at shiftology.com. You could reach out to any of us, and we would love to have a conversation.
Well, again, thank you so much for both joining me today and for your time. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks,
Likewise.
Dan.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Shooting the Shift. We hope you enjoyed learning more about how we help our clients with their branding and the truly awesome effect it can have when all understand, embrace, and trust the process. Again, you can visit campcanopy.com to see the branding work and learn more about the camp. And you can always visit us at shift-ology.com to learn more about many of the services we provide, and contact us to set up a free discovery meeting to talk about branding, rebranding, or any marketing communications challenges we might be able to help you solve. On behalf of the entire gang here at Shiftology, I'm Dan Toland saying thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Shooting the Shift.